just going to mic check this mic for Greg.
You can try. Hello, hello. Good. Hello.
Seems to work.
You're turning them on? Yeah, I got them. Oh, nice to meet you. And your name was what?
I don't know.
Oh, nice to meet you. Oh, I appreciate it.
Yeah, we don't.
Is he already?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Okay, wonderful. Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Hi. Oh yeah, yeah. Good to meet you. Yeah, yeah. No comment.
No, thank you, the New York Immigration Coalition. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello and welcome. We are about to get started, so we ask folks to take their seats if they're not already seated and they're still in the hallway. If there is not a seat available for you in this room, we do have overflow space. Please take a look out. Folks that have a staff sticker can help direct you to that space. Before we get started, we have a brief announcement about interpretation. I'm going to hand it over to Winnie.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. If anyone here needs interpretation, we are providing it in Spanish and Mandarin Chinese. Si necesita interpretación, pase por el mostrador de facturación para recoger un equipo. 如果需要翻译的话，请去登记区拿一个耳机。
Thank you, Winnie. Good evening. I'm Sarah Watson, the director of the Murphy Institute here at CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies. And welcome and thank you for joining us tonight. I want to extend a big thank you to our co-sponsors, New York Immigration Coalition, the city, and Documented. To the mayoral candidates for being here with us tonight, and to all the folks whose work is making tonight's program possible. I want to remind people that you can submit written questions. There are question sheets. We will be coming around and collecting these around 7 o'clock, so please do fill out your question forms before 7 p.m. I want to make a couple brief announcements about 2 upcoming CUNY SLU events and 1 upcoming New York Immigration Coalition event. On April 29th, we'll host a breakfast conversation with Kazi Fozia, organizing director at DRUM. On May 1st, please join New York Immigration Coalition for the May Day rally in March downtown at 5 p.m. And on May 8th and 9th, here at SLU, we're hosting a 2-day conference titled Labor in the Crisis of Democracy. There's information on these programs at the check-in desk. I now want to welcome Greg Mantios, founding dean of CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to your team and the teams from our co-sponsors and everybody who was involved in putting tonight's event in place. Terrific job. Thank you. For those of you who don't know us, just a few words about who we are and what we do. The CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies is the 25th unit of the City University of New York. We were established in 2018 as the newest school at the time. We have been around for a long time before we were a school. We do a lot of public programming, but basically we have 3 missions. One is to help prepare the next generation of labor and community leaders. Secondly, our mission is to increase opportunities for working adults to enroll in higher education programs. And the third and most relevant part of our mission is service to the community. And that's part of what we're doing here tonight and what we do on a regular basis. We have 2 or 3, sometimes even more, public forums every month. If you're not on our mailing list, be sure to sign up before you leave. They're all pretty exciting, I have to say, and we get some great speakers and try to cover the most challenging issues confronting poor and working class people in our city. And our mantra has always been that we are dedicated to public service and social justice. And that means we're dedicated to worker rights, to immigrant rights, and to civil rights. So how appropriate for us to be sponsoring this event tonight. Our panelists will be introduced in a moment, and maybe can we bring them in? Are we ready to bring them in? No? In a couple of minutes. Okay. Our panelists have been very active in our city and state politics for a long time. Some of them I know, some of them I'm getting to know, but I have to say I really, truly admire their work and their dedication to the city. So we're grateful to have them with us today. I think it's going to be an extraordinary panel, an extraordinary night. I want to thank our co-hosts documented, 2 outstanding news services. They make a daily contribution to the life of this great city. I especially want to thank the New York Immigration Coalition, which really took the lead in organizing the event. They've been protecting the rights of our immigrant communities for almost 4 decades. NYC's President, Murad Wada, has been president of NYC and is, I think, for almost a dozen years has been in leadership roles there and has spent, most of his adult life fighting for the rights of immigrants. He's a son of a Palestinian immigrants, and he's been true to the cause, ever since arriving here. He serves on a number of committees and commissions, and I'm very proud to say he serves on our Labor Advisory Board, the Labor and Community Advisory Board. So we're very grateful to him for his support, and we're having him speak at our upcoming reception, our honors reception. So thank you for all that you do, Murad. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming to the stage Murad.
Thank you, Greg. How's everyone feeling tonight? All right, so my name is Murad Wada. I'm the president and CEO of the New York Immigration Coalition. Tonight is the first and only New York City mayoral candidate forum on immigrant issues. So give it up to all of you for being here tonight for that. The entire New York Immigration Coalition team is thrilled to be here tonight in partnership with our incredible hosts, the CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies, and our amazing co-sponsors, the city and Documented. Before we get started, I want to remind folks of our community guidelines for this event. We expect our audience and our candidates to treat each other with respect. We will not tolerate disrespectful outbursts or behavior, disruptions, heckling, or other inappropriate behavior. If you don't follow our community guidelines, we'll give you a warning, and from there, our team will help you settle down. If you don't, you'll be removed from the premises. So we hope that no one has to get removed from the premises tonight, so please abide by our community guidelines. We ask that you recognize that there are a lot of people in this room who want to hear from all of the candidates here, and it's important that we listen to the comments made by each candidate. Why, you may be asking? Because New York City is a ranked choice voting city. Ranked choice voting means it gives voters more say in who gets elected by giving them the opportunity to express their preferences in the ballot. So that means you get to vote for up to 5 people if you choose to do so. So instead of just voting for one candidate, you have multiple choices in all primary and special elections, including for mayor, comptroller, public advocate, borough president, and city council. A reminder, you do not have to rank all the candidates, just the ones you want to win. You do not have to use all 5 votes if they don't appeal to you. A candidate who collects a majority of the vote, 50% plus 1 wins. Even if your first choice candidate does not win, your vote remains important in choosing the winner by ranking other candidates. So when you are filling out your ballot, remember, rank your candidates in order of preference. Now, without further ado, I want to introduce you all to our moderators for tonight's forum. Join me in welcoming Gwen Hogan, senior reporter at The City. Let's give it up for Gwen.
Thank you.
And our other moderator, Amir Khafagi, the labor reporter at Documented. And with that, over to you, Gwen and Amir.
Thank you, Murad. And candidates, thank you so much for being here tonight. We're just going to lay out a few ground rules. Everybody's going to get all the questions. We're going to try to keep our answers to 1 minute so we can get through everything. So really give us your best points first. There are a series of yes and no questions that will come in throughout the evening. Those are our ground rules. Amir?
And I'm Amir Kafaji. Nice to see everybody here today. And I want to thank you and our audience. So I want to introduce each and every candidate, but we're not all here, so I'll introduce who's on the stage right now. right after I introduce, we'll dive right in, okay? So I'd like to introduce City Council member and speaker, Adrienne Adams. Please wave to the audience. Thank you. Former Assembly member, Michael Blake. Please wave. Thank you. Comptroller, Brad Lander. Please wave. And former City Comptroller, Scott Stringer. Thank you.
We'll get right started. Is this on? Hello? Hello? Yeah, there we go. So last week, I'm sure many of you know, Mayor Eric Adams' administration had First Deputy Mayor Randy Mastro sign an executive order that allowed ICE to reopen an office on Rikers Island. If this executive order survives legal challenges, we want to know from all of you, would you repeal it on day one of your administration if you were elected? You can go down the line.
Absolutely. As a son of immigrants, I wouldn't tolerate it. It's unconstitutional.
Thank
It's
you.
wrong.
We have a second question. We'll ask you about that. We just want to go make sure everybody's on the same page. Go ahead.
Absolutely, yes.
The lawsuit speaks for itself. Yes.
On day one.
So following up on that, how would each of you evaluate the current state of the city's sanctuary laws given the new adversarial nature of the Trump administration? And is there anything that you would want to do to change or expand or strengthen the laws or how they're currently enforced? Would you like to start there, Assemblyman?
ICE has no business here, whether it be at Rikers, whether at places of worship, whether they are schools. We are a sanctuary city. We will continue to be a sanctuary city. We will make sure that our communities are protected in every possible way. We're going to make it very clear. It's not just for our Latino immigrants, it's for our Caribbean immigrants, it's for our Asian immigrants, it's for our African immigrants. All of us are intertwined in this moment.
Is there anything that you would change about the current laws that are on the
Absolutely.
books?
I got to get to my 60 seconds, right? Come on now. So first, we have to have increased legal protections, because what is happening consistently is that too many of our immigrant brothers and sisters are not having that protection in the first place. You have about 180,000 that are not having legal representation consistently. Second, we have to make sure that every time Donald Trump and the federal government come for us, that we are serious in our attacks against them. And I've said regularly, we should look at cutting off sending funding to DC. If you have these serious steps, you will make sure these protections are in place for many of our communities to ensure we actually have the chance of justice happening for our immigrant communities.
I would use every power the mayor has, legal power, to continue and expand our sanctuary city laws. I also think we need to be strategic, recognizing that the next 18 months in particular are going to be very, very difficult for our immigrants, for the people who believe very strongly that this is a city for everybody. As mayor, and even now, I believe that there are things that we can do to protect us from Trump. First of all, when Trump tries to take money from our legal services, from our immigrant rights organizations, I've urged a $1 billion set aside, $500 million from the state, $500 million from the city, so that we can replenish that money as that money is seized by the federal government. We've got to keep us alive until we get to the congressional elections. I believe we're going to win the House because of what Trump is doing, but we have to get there first and make sure no one is harmed. Second, we have to make sure that we stop him in his tracks strategically. Today, I announced a plan called SHIELD, which would basically ensure that Trump can't unload federal office buildings that hold immigrant rights services, services for seniors, and I believe very strongly that we need to have a land use text amendment in place to ensure that we can have a land use process that we can't grab our buildings.
Thank you, Mr. Stringer. Councilman Speaker Adams.
Thank you very much for the question. I don't think I have to tell anybody in this room that the pressure to change our sanctuary city laws for me as Speaker has been very, very prevalent over these past few months. And as you have watched me move as a leader in this city, I have said absolutely not. We will not change our sanctuary city laws. We've even had the mayor, who has refused to lead on these issues, come out and say that the laws should be changed. I can't imagine such a thing being a thing for someone that is supposed to be protecting our immigrants, actually coming out and saying bold-faced that he is not going to do that. So I have had to step up as the Speaker of the City Council to actually lead where we have had a mayor that has refused to lead, particularly around this issue. We have watched the lawsuit that I implemented yesterday to safeguard and protect our sanctuary city laws and protect ICE protect our immigrants from the horror of ICE coming in because of a deal, because of a quid pro quo that our mayor, the deal was, we all watched Fox and Friends, appalled at the fact that we watched the deal go down. I will be up your butt if you don't do what I say. Excuse me? That was the deal right there. Get ICE over here or you go to jail. So the lawsuit pretty much says that we are not going to enable a quid pro quo, and we believe that there was no authority via the New York City Charter by which the third deputy mayor, first deputy mayor could ever invoke that signature on Executive Order 50.
Thank you, Speaker Adams.
Thank you.
Controller Lander.
First of all, I wanted to say a big thanks to New York Immigration Coalition and the CUNY Labor Center and to the city and Documented for organizing this critical forum. We give it up for them. This is a really critical moment right now when it's not just immigrant rights who are under attack, it's our whole democracy that is being attacked through Trump's xenophobia. So I was proud to be a co-sponsor of the bill that strengthened the sanctuary city laws when I was in the city council, that added the prohibition that ICE cannot be on Rikers. And we knew then that that was because we couldn't trust ICE to respect due process, but I still don't think we could have imagined what is happening with Kilmar Abrego Garcia or Mayoral Gutierrez, where people accused of nothing and even with mistaken identities are being deported to torture in other countries. So yes, I mean, and let's remember that this mayor, it's not only that he's seeking a pardon from Trump, he was demonizing immigrants long before that happened. So I've laid out a plan for how, as mayor, I would make sure that city employees in our schools and our hospitals and our shelters and the contractors that are our security guards know the rules and laws and do not let ICE into any of those buildings. And I will make sure that we're launching a public education campaign so parents feel comfortable sending their kids to school. Survivors of domestic violence know that they can report. And then finally, in terms of getting legal services to people, that's going to have to be done at the grassroots level through things like Action NYC, because people aren't going to come to city facilities in the same way. So we got to put the resources out in the neighborhoods.
Thank you very much, Controller.
Thank you.
Amir?
Okay, thank you. So the next question is a yes or no question, so please keep it short. Do you support New York for All Act, which is currently being considered by the state legislature, which would expand sanctuary protections across the state and bar local authorities from cooperating with ICE on immigration enforcement? Start with you, Comptroller Landon.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Simple. Nice. Thank you. So this one's for everyone. The Trump administration is threatening to cut billions of funds to sanctuary cities like New York. Would you consider cutting the NYPD budget and reallocating the funds to other agencies to support vital city programs like childcare, schools, and libraries? Start with you, Mr. Black.
Well, I'm black, but my last name is Blake.
Excuse
But I
me.
understand what you're trying to do right there. But full stop. You got to keep it light out here. Absolutely, absolutely. Maybe if we spent more time making sure a kid had a book in their book bag rather than trying to arrest them for a dime bag, things would be different in our communities. And so, yes, we got to cut funding. When you have $1.4 billion of overtime that was spent at NYPD that had nothing to do with public safety, if you take those kinds of resources, then we could actually have heat and hot water at NYCHA facilities. Then you can actually have people having jobs and higher wages. Then you can actually make sure that our city services are actually being implemented in a serious way. We have to say enough is enough when it comes to what's happening within the budget. And when it comes to NYPD, making sure that you can have better policing. More cops does not lead to better safety. You need better actual community policing. And we got to be very clear about that and consistent about that, and that's the kind of justice we would have with our mayor.
Will you cut their budget?
Oh yeah, I said yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were calling me black, so you didn't hear me say that the first time.
I heard you.
Stringer, go ahead.
I'm just Scott.
Scott. Former Controller, go ahead.
All right. Look, there, as Michael said, a $1.3 billion overtime budget is something that is unacceptable given the budget constraints that we have. When I was city controller, I actually initiated something called ClaimStat, where we looked at the data of where complaints were coming against police and precincts, and then actually worked with the NYPD to share data so that I would give them the roadmap for them to fix some of these claims that were coming because of police misconduct. I think that's how we resulted in a 15% decrease in overtime, and I think as mayor we should do more of this. To the larger question of funding, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we have got to create a fund to deal with these cutbacks. They're coming, and they're coming in a ferocious way. Trump doesn't just want to save money or do budget work. What he wants to do is take us down. That's why we have to set aside $1 billion. That's why we have to, as I announced today, we have to protect our federal office buildings that hold so many of our critical services and human infrastructure services in the city. We need to delay. We need a text amendment that says—
Would you cut their budget?
I will cut the overtime budget, but I'm not going to cut the— we made a mistake with that last time. I think we have to move beyond that and start thinking strategically about how we conquer this. So I don't see a budget cut, but I see an overtime cut.
Speaker Adams.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear Scott say that, because my take on that is from one that has done 3 city budgets, negotiated 3 city budgets, and now on my 4th. I don't want to cut any agency. Donald Trump is going to do enough of that cutting for us as a city of New York. No matter who the next mayor is, we've got a target on our back, and that target is going to equal dollar signs that will be taken away from the city of New York. So as far as cutting, I don't want to cut any city budget. I want to protect our funds. I agree wholeheartedly with Scott. It's the overtime that we need to take a look at with the NYPD. That is the problem. That has been my clarion call year after year in so many oversight hearings. It has been, what are you doing to cut your overtime? And each and every year, this is the budget dance. I don't like dancing with them. But this is the quote-unquote budget dance that we go through with NYPD every single year. And every year we ask the same question: what are you doing differently to tweak this? And we don't get a satisfactory answer, but it is the overtime that is the issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comptroller.
I laid out a detailed plan today on how to get our budget ready for not just Trump budget cuts, but for the recession that unfortunately is likely coming as a result of Trump tariffs. We are actually going to end this year, this fiscal year, with a budget surplus of more than $1 billion that needs to be put in our rainy day fund, and we need a $1 billion increase in the general reserve. So we're ready next year for whatever cuts come. You know, they're threatening to cut 8,000 emergency housing vouchers, which could make families homeless. So we've got to be ready, put out a plan to do it. There's some creative things we can do also, like I proposed creating an independent authority to provide reproductive and gender-affirming care at H&H, so we don't lose federal funding there. So there are many things we can do, but I don't think we should cut our public safety budget in order to protect our city from Trump. New Yorkers want public safety. Now, they want accountable policing, and they don't want wasteful overtime, and they don't want to spend billions of dollars on claims against the city, so it needs to be spent wisely.
So no cuts to NYPD.
But, well, again, yes, cut the overtime, cut the claims, make sure there's real accountability, but
Thank
not
you.
a cut to budget headcount.
We want to get you guys on the record on something fun. Who are you ranking number 2, Assemblymember Blake?
Scott rubbing my shoulder. What are you doing over here? I have not decided yet publicly who will be my number 2.
Let's see
who's going to be good out here.
Scott, have
It's
you
very
decided?
easy. I'm going to rank the candidate I believe will be the second best mayor.
Which is
Stay tuned.
Speaker Adams.
Much like my colleagues, I am still sizing them all up. You know I was the last one to get in this race. So I'm sizing these guys all up right now.
Controller?
I will not be ranking Andrew Cuomo anywhere on my ballot for mayor, and I hope no one else in the room will either.
So this is a yes or no question. We're going to try that again since we haven't been quite sticking to the yes or no. Should Mahmoud Khalil be deported for his role as negotiator between students and Columbia University during the campus protests against Israel's war in Gaza?
No, and not Mohsen
Thank you.
Madawi.
We're going to
Absolutely not.
No.
Hell no.
Thank you. Following up on that, what can the mayor be doing to better protect immigrant students who have been targeted for their activism who live in New York City?
Well, I think this is one area where I am different from our colleagues here. Sending NYPD to terrorize students on campuses is wrong. And we got to be clear about that. There's a difference between people being safe and actually feeling secure. When you think about what has happened, you have a mayor who was parading himself, flying to DC to do a meeting at the White House, and then turned back around because his fundraiser is being raided when it comes to immigration. And so what we can be doing, we first and foremost should not be utilizing our public resources to be deporting our citizens, especially those who have not done anything wrong. We have a scenario right now where it's absolutely egregious. Second, we have to go much further in actually supporting our immigrant families, in particular those that do not have legal representation. You have close to 180,000 right now that are showing up without having lawyers to represent them. Third, we actually have to increase our language access across the board so that people are protected in these first places. And so this is all intertwined to this question, because too often we
Our
are treating—
interpreters are asking everyone to talk just a little bit slower. Sorry to interrupt. Go for it.
I'm Jamaican, so I speak fast, okay? Well, sorry, right? So we should not allow the Republican rhetoric of Trump, Elon, and Eric Adams to be what's happening here in our city. And what has been happening is that people are terrified. We are watching right now, families are afraid to take their kids to school because they think ICE may roll up on them. We are watching the incompetence of people not being able to count in Eric Adams' administration, so that you have Nuestros Niños and other nonprofits that were about to be closed because they weren't being protected in that regard. So it's all intertwined in how we should actually be utilizing our resources. But let's be clear, we cannot and will not be an authoritarian state where people are being deported because of Trump's unconstitutional behavior. When I am your mayor, you will have a son of immigrants who's actually gonna be fighting for you.
Thank you.
Mr. Stringer, what could the mayor be doing to better protect students who've been targeted for their activism?
Well,
in
the
your
first
city?
thing we need is a mayor who is not going to leverage this moment in time for his or her own political advantage. And that's what Eric Adams did legally. That is what Eric Adams did politically. And I just want to say that my lifetime of civil rights activism and free speech activism, as I talk to so many people of different generations, they are horrified and scared that their lifetime of work moving the ball forward for justice and equality, for people that have different opinions, for people that have peaceful protests, there's a generation in this city that is just heartbroken about their life's work. I feel it with myself at some point as well. The young people in this audience today are facing challenges that previous generations really did not face. The notion that you could be picked off the street at 8 o'clock in the evening, sent not just to a local institution, prison institution, but can be moved to Louisiana or Deep Six somewhere, never to be heard from again, is something so against the Constitution and everything this country and this city stands for. We need a mayor who is going to not just stand tall and strong against Trump, but we're going to need a mayor who's going to have to use every fiber and experience they have to make sure that this stops. I believe in our democracy, and I believe that we have an opportunity to begin to dismantle this Trump agenda. It's going to start with the congressional elections. We have got to think very wisely about how we get there and win these seats, because we've got to stop this in 18 months.
Thank you. Speaker Adams.
Yes. Well, as the first woman mayor that will be elected to lead New York City, my opinion is what the mayor should be doing. The mayor should never be going to Washington, sitting in hearings, taking the Fifth Amendment to save his own self. The mayor should never be in front of an administration that he's cozied up to, cozying up even more by saying that I've done nothing wrong. The mayor should never not be accountable for the things that he has not put in place. To this day, he still continues to blame our immigrants for his own incompetence. He blames our immigrants.
Is there anything that the mayor could be doing to better protect immigrant students who are being targeted for their activism?
Absolutely. Where the mayor has an opportunity to speak out in behalf of our students on campuses, as I was yesterday at Columbia, talking to the journalism students and was asked about being stormtrooped, and I told them how appalled I was. The mayor should be going into those places, those learning institutions, letting those students know that he is the protector of their heads. He is the one where the buck stops with him. He has the power to do that, to speak up and speak out. He has the power to do something as far as safeguarding their funds as well. That is something else that he needs to put his money where his mouth is as being the leader, the mayor, and again, as the first woman mayor, that is where my heart is going to be, protecting every person that lives and gives their all to New York City. It is up to us to give our all as well.
Thank you. Controller Lander.
So I agree with what everybody has said so far. It is critical at this moment that the mayor of New York City, the city with that statue in the harbor, the greatest immigrant city that I believe the world has ever known, is standing up and using their voice and fighting for immigrants and for students. One thing that I would do specifically is to convene universities at City Hall. There used to be a Department of Higher Education, but it hasn't met in decades. The mayor should be getting the heads of all the universities together, and not just the universities, the law firms and the nonprofits, and saying, these are New York values. What support do you need to stand up to them? But also, how do you show up together for each other so you don't get picked off one by one? And then I just want to say one more important thing about bully pulpit, because on the one hand, this is about free speech and the rights of immigrants, but I think it's important to say out loud that Mahmoud Khalil and Mohsen Madawi and other students have been targeted because they're standing up for the rights of Palestinians. And that can't be like erased or repressed. And I'm the proud highest ranking Jewish elected official in New York City government, but I was proud to be the first Jewish elected official to call for a ceasefire in Gaza, along with the return of the Israeli hostages, and to say, as a proud Jewish New Yorker, the human rights of Palestinians matter. And we won't agree all the time. I believe in the vision of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state, and I'm going to say that loud. But I am also going to criticize and stand up for people who are standing up for their rights. And we just need to say that out loud, like advocating in free speech and op-eds and in peaceful nonviolent protest for the human rights of Palestinians is protected by the Constitution, and it is not grounds for deportation, and we're not going to let that happen in New York City.
Thank you, Controller Lander.
Thank you.
Amir.
So I want to talk about Roosevelt Avenue in Queens. This is a yes or no question. Immigrant street vendors on Roosevelt have had their carts crushed by garbage trucks, have been issued summonses, and have been arrested as a result of the mayor's quality of life crackdown on Roosevelt Avenue. Do you support the crackdown? Let's try this again, Assemblymember Blake.
No.
Thank you.
I think Roosevelt Avenue has to be cleaned up, but I don't think people should be harassed off the streets. It's
Do
not
you
a yes
support
or no.
it?
I don't support the crackdown as presently undergoing right now.
Speaker Adams?
I can almost say that verbatim, not the way that it's been handled.
No. Okay. Speaker Adams, how would you handle it?
We have to be more sensitive to people that are trying to make a living in the city of New York. We cannot just take a broad brush and say, okay, we are going to smash their ways of making a living. That to me it's horrendous. I was going to say criminal in itself, but that's almost an oxymoron to say that. But I believe that there is a way to work within the boundaries of the law and to protect people's right to work. When I tell you we met those buses 2 years ago, 3 years ago, of folks coming from other countries, the only thing they wanted was a place to work. They were willing to pick up bottles and cans. And we're like, we've got to get these people jobs. They need TPS status and all of that. So we have got to find a way to accommodate people that want to make an honest day's living wage in the city.
Stringer, how would you?
I agree with Adrian. I also think we need to do a little preventive work to make sure that people are getting the services that they need, that their kids need. A lot of people out in the streets not because they necessarily want to, because they have to, because they have to pay rent. Even if they're in a shelter, they have to pay expenses. They're worried about their kids having the resources they need to make a living. We're a history of New York where immigrants come here from all different walks of life and all different backgrounds and do the work that nobody else wants to do. And we should not be in the business as a city making it harder for them. But having said that, we also have to make sure that the streets are safe, that women feel that they can go home at night, that children can walk freely. And again, what I learned when I was borough president, there's always a solution. When you're consultative, when you're working with communities and community boards, that you don't have to be an either or government. You can make sure that we keep our people safe, but also give people a running head start in life. That's the great tradition in New York.
Thank you. The next yes or no question, you're gonna have an opportunity with this question. Despite the reform in 2021, where in New York City under Mayor Eric Adams, there are still thousands of people waiting for a wait list for permits, and the city has only issued 371 new permits to street vendors since then. Do you support lifting the cap on the street vending permits? Comptroller Landon.
Yes, I do support. Can I say a little more here, or
You
just
can
yes,
briefly,
and then I get it?
briefly,
You tell me.
yes,
I want
go
to follow
ahead.
the
No,
rules.
briefly, go
Well,
ahead.
I mean, we should lift the cap, but we have to give the permits that were already authorized by law. I mean, the city has utterly failed just to do what the law already requires in terms of extending permits. And what that means is you have thousands of people who are forced to get them on the black market, where they go for $20 or $25 or $30,000, not to the city, just to somebody who already has it. So yes, lift the cap. But it's actually more important in this case to have a mayor who's actually going to make the bureaucracy work, which is what I know how to do from my time as controller, auditing the administration time and time and time again. And we've dug in on this issue and pointed out the ways in which they have failed to issue those permits. So I will get those permits
Thank you
issued
very
as
much.
mayor and work with the council to raise the cap.
Thank you very much. Speaker Adams, would you lift
Thank
the
you.
cap?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I've got to do a little bit of a maneuver here as the speaker. We do have a hearing coming up on May 6th. I'm looking forward to it. So this issue is before the city council. Can't give a yes or no on this because I'm looking forward to the hearing where all of these answers finally, hopefully, will be settled there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think the first thing is there's starting to become a market with a handful of people who are controlling those permits. We have to crack down on them immediately. This is something that is denying people ability to work. People are making bank off other people's inability to work. I would crack down as mayor, and as also somebody who's audited every city agency. I think that part of the problem and failure of this administration is very early on, they forgot that this was not about swagger. This was about actually meeting the hard government moment of managing a bureaucracy with 300,000 employees with multiple agencies.
As part of managing that bureaucracy, would you lift the caps?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Assembly member?
So yes, we need to lift the caps, but we want to combine on both of these pieces. The attacks that are happening against street vendors and the delays that are happening in terms of permitting is because we have allowed a mayor to have a racist approach against communities of color and immigrants. Like, we just got to be, like, we're dancing around this here. Like, there's a conversation that's happening of supposedly street vendors are somehow leading to less safety. So we're automatically presuming the case that because you are black or brown, there's an unsafe condition that's happening there, right? We got to stop that nonsense. Why are we having delays when it comes to permits? It's because we have an administration that is determined that we don't want for you to have an opportunity to move faster in your communities.
So you will lift the caps and stop the delays?
100%, because at the end of the day, as a son of immigrants myself, who's married to someone who is Jamaican Honduran, who understands this journey, I think about
Thank
the
you.
reality. Hold on, you've been rushing through answers. Give us a second right now. The people in the
This was a
room want
yes
to
or
hear
no.
our answers on these things.
Yes, but it was a yes or no question.
Well, you also didn't give Brad and I an opportunity to respond to the previous one. So I just want to say, to this degree, we have a demonization that is happening against our immigrant communities that is wrong and unacceptable. And a lot of the city policies that are happening is because Eric Adams does not believe that you should be supported in the ways that you are.
Thank you. So the next question, former Governor Andrew Cuomo and Mayor Eric Adams, who aren't here tonight, as we can all see. They support legislation in the council to require delivery workers to obtain e-bike licenses, an effort that's opposed by many of the workers themselves. Do you support that legislation, and what will be your approach to supporting the safety of delivery workers and ensuring their access to critical resources and infrastructure they need to continue their work as essential workers in New York? Comptroller Landon, please.
I do not support that legislation. I was proud to be the prime sponsor of the legislation that gave deliveristas a living wage. We're the only city to do it. And I laid out a plan for e-bike and micromobility safety, and I had safe streets advocates, Families for Safe Streets, and Los Deliveristas Unidos with me when I did. I've got a plan that will confront the folks who are selling illegal mopeds without licenses to folks without licenses, not legal in this city, and that will require Uber and Seamless and DoorDash to get a license like Uber and Lyft have to do on the for-hire vehicle side, to pay their drivers, not to deplatform them, but also to make sure that there's safety on the trips that they are making billions of dollars on. So We can have safer streets. We do need to address e-bike and moped chaos, but we 100% can do it without cracking down on people who are out there every day just trying to make a living.
Thank you. Speaker Adams.
I'm going to have to apologize for my hard stop. I am watching, and I know my team is watching also, so I'm going to give this answer. And it's much like the last one. You're talking about legislation again that's going through the process in City Council, so I can't give an opinion on the legislation itself because it's coming before us to work through and to hopefully resolve. But I will let you know that I've always supported deliveristas. We rallied for deliveristas. I believe we were in that rally together a year or so ago. So our focus, again, has to be on the livelihood of those that are trying to make a living. And that is where the heart of my work is. I always say I legislate the way that I live. If I can't represent my neighbor, then I don't know what my neighbor is going through or suffering through or dealing with. So I have always legislated the way that I live, or try to. This is no different than that. So while this bill is going through the legislative process in the City Council, I can let you know that it is going to be my focus as mayor to make sure, once again, that there are job opportunities for the least of these, those that have come to this city looking for that great American dream that Donald Trump is now trying to turn into a nightmare with his chaos. My focus will always be on working towards and for the least of these to give those opportunities that are so richly deserved by everyone that considers New York their home.
But as a community member, where are you leaning towards?
As a community member?
Yeah, if you had to, as a constituent.
I think I just answered. As a constituent, I am looking towards my neighbors who are the most diverse people in the world, because Queens is the world's borough. I am looking towards them to make sure that they have a livelihood, that they can stay here, and so that they can have a better place for themselves and their children, generation after generation, to stay here and not move away because of any complications that may come to them at the hands of this city.
Thank you very much. Comptroller Stringer.
I continue to support the deliveristas, have stood through my time as controller, as borough president. I do think that we need some of these delivery companies to step up and help their employees understand how we deal with the rules of the road. I do think we should put it out there that the success of a senior citizen living, little change of,
Right. We're playing musical chairs. Excuse
okay.
us.
Welcome, State
This is
Senator
like
Myrie.
musical chairs ranked choice
Yes.
voting now.
I do think we have to double down and say to both the corporations and the people who do the deliveries that speed is not only the prime concern here. If a senior citizen, someone 7 years old, gets hit by one of these motorized bikes and falls down, their decline and their mobility could be severely restricted. We have to respect our parents and grandparents, people who are walking, on the streets. No e-bikes on the streets, on the sidewalks. We need an education campaign because we have to make sure for deliveristas to do well, public opinion must also be aligned with their hopes and dreams, and we have to make sure that we hold everybody accountable to safety on the
Does that
streets.
campaign include licensing?
I'm not for licensing, but I have to
Okay.
tell you, if we don't confront the issue of safety with e-bikes, whether it's batteries or driving and speeds, if we are continuing as a city to value a food delivery in 8 minutes, no matter what the consequences are for the deliverista or the person on the street, then we're gonna have to come back and revisit this. We cannot continue the status quo because it's dangerous and it costs lives. And I have 2 kids, and I worry about them when they cross the street too.
Thank you. Assembly member?
I don't support the legislation. We have to support our deliveristas. We have to be intentional about how we are stepping up and fighting for our communities, but being mindful at the same time that, yes, we have to make sure that families are safer, but what we cannot continue to do is have a policy and a procedure that's going to criminalize too many people that need help.
Thank you.
Welcome, State Senator Eleanor Myrie. I assume you're fresh from Albany. It's going okay?
Better late than never.
Do you want to give him the question again? So he
Yes,
gets a chance to
I'll
answer
give
it?
you the
since he's-
opportunity.
Yeah.
I almost forgot the question. Okay, so we were talking about e-bike legislation, and there is current legislation in the city council now to license e-bike delivery workers who have e-bikes, and we wanted to know, would you support that legislation?
Yeah, I do not support licensing. I'm going to echo a lot of what has been said already. It is important for us to be ensuring safety. I do think there has to be accountability up the chain. I do think that there has to be education around safety. My mom got both of her knees replaced a couple of years ago, and crossing the street is a big endeavor and has become scarier than it has been in years past. But I don't think that it should be on the backs of individuals trying to make a living and put food on the table. There should be accountability up the chain.
Thank you.
This is another yes or no question. Criminal defendants in New York courts facing even 1 day of jail get lawyers in court, right? Whereas immigrants facing deportation do not have an access to counsel. Do you support expanding legal services for immigrant New Yorkers facing deportation, and would you implement universal representation on a city level? Is that something you would push for? Go ahead, sorry.
Yes.
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 Thank you very much. Made that easy. Another question about city FEPS. Immigrants and undocumented households are currently not eligible for city FEPS vouchers. Is expanding eligibility to households who are undocumented something that you would fight for? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 Dramatic.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okie dokie. So, an estimated 2.1 million workers in New York State are victims to wage theft every year. Many of them are immigrant workers. What is your plan to better protect New York City workers? We start with you, Comptroller Lander, please.
Yeah, sure. We've been working hard on this in the Controller's Office because we enforce the prevailing wage, and I'm pleased to say we've dramatically scaled up that enforcement. We've gotten over $9 million recovered for workers, mostly immigrants, who had their wages stolen, and we're going to be past 10 for sure pretty soon. We created an employer violations dashboard for the first time that I believe Documented actually had the first story on, that tracks city, state, and federal workplace violations. So you can connect the dots because it's often the same employer who has done wage theft, that has also had an unfair labor practice, that also violated OSHA guidelines, that also denied their worker paid sick days. And when you can see the through line, then you can go at those companies. We've got a wall of shame that connects the dots between the worst offenders. So I have proposed creating the first ever Mayor's Office of Workers' Rights when I get in office, that will do exactly this. Find the patterns, add enforcement capacity, connect the dots, and there's some laws that we can pass that will actually help deal with the rollbacks that are coming from Trump. So we're not going to be able to count on the National Labor Relations Board because it's either going to be on the boss's side or not exist at all. But I propose passing Tiffany Caban's Secure Jobs Act, which would build on what I did as a council member for fast food workers, so they can't be fired without any reason. New York City has not just the need right now, but the capacity to stand up, defend its immigrant workers from wage theft, and defend all workers more strongly than we are.
Thank you very much. Senator?
Yeah, you know, I have on the state Senate level supported legislation that would increase the penalties for wage theft. And I think that is something that I would continue to advocate for as the next mayor. We have a Supreme Court in the United States that is hostile to labor rights, that is hostile to the NLRB, and it's going to be more important than ever that we have a robust Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. We are going to be a bastion, I believe, for the rest of the country in protecting vulnerable workers during the Trump administration. So I think we got to go on the offense a little bit. I think we have to do more know your rights, more outreach to ensure that people know that the city has their back. And with the law department, I think we have an opportunity to be utilizing every legal tool at our disposal to ensure that we're protecting ourselves, expanding our Commission on Human Rights, ensuring that people have the protections that they need.
Thank you. Assembly member?
If we want to be serious about this, for the employers that are doing this, you need to revoke their licenses and actually make sure that they're not able to continue to do business in New York.
Thank you very much. Comptroller?
When I was controller, I built the program that Brad talks about today. It was really amazing to me that people would come to our office and complain they hadn't been paid from a shady contractor, people who barely spoke English, mostly immigrants, who would come in really lost and hopeless about the money that they earn. Sometimes they earn $25,000, $30,000 and never got paid. So what we did was we started with our prevailing wage unit, and we started to hire investigators in different languages to go out and find the people based on payroll records who had been stiffed by these companies. And I have to tell you, you know, being controller is an amazing job because you get to do a lot of things at once, and it does prepare you to be mayor, but there was nothing more satisfying than being able to give a check to a person who never thought in the world that they would get back that $25,000. They just said, it's lost to me. I have no recourse. I don't speak English. I don't have power. I'm shunted aside. I did all this work. And to give out those checks and do that is incredible. As mayor, you know what we have to do? We have to double down and make sure that we are being more proactive, because most people do not come forward to get that money that they're owed. Most people don't even think that this is possible. We have to work with community newspapers in different languages. That's what I did when I was controller. Made sure that people had a real understanding. They would read about it in the papers. And you know who was our best friends? People who drove cabs would tell their friends in the cab industry that, yes, remember when you were on that construction site? Go to the controller's office. Give them your name. And we built trust and relationships in all 5 boroughs. It's a wonderful program, and I'm glad you're continuing.
Thank you very much.
Amir, can I have 30 more seconds
30
here?
more seconds.
Because
Let me
the
look at the
biggest
moderator. Go
single
ahead.
violation we're facing right now, $2.3 million, was for people who were hired to clean the subway cars during the pandemic. And this was, let me give a collaboration here between the prior controller and the current controller, because
No,
this was
it's
during Scott's tenure, but it was also during Governor Andrew Cuomo's tenure, because he is who decided that those workers would not get the prevailing wage and ordered the MTA to hire them with no health insurance and no prevailing wage. Prior controller started the suit. We are continuing the suit. That is not somebody who would be mayor carrying anything about wage theft or the rights
And
of
if I
immigrant
can have
workers.
10 seconds, this is... If I could have 10 seconds, this is Brad Lander's ranked choice vote move, and it worked.
Wow, so that he's number 2 for you? Wow, that's beautiful. As many of you know, New York City saw a dramatic number of people coming from the southern border and arriving in New York City over a 2.5, 3-year period starting in 2022. I know you guys love to criticize the current mayor, but I would like to ask you if you could name one thing that Mayor Eric Adams did right when handling this crisis, and give us one thing that you would have done differently. Assemblymember Blake, would you like to start?
I can't agree with a criminal.
Is there anything you think Mayor Eric Adams did right when handling the crisis?
I think this may have been the worst moment of his mayoralty, and I can't forgive him for what he did. He had an opportunity to be a national leader on the rights of immigrants, the rights of people coming to the city to keep the tradition, and when he violated that every which way, I cannot say one thing that they did right. They set back so many people, and it was really a disgrace.
Betrayed our city, lied about the causes of the budget crisis, lied about how much needed to be spent, violated people's rights by imposing those 30 and 60-day rules, and demonized people. That said, under his watch, even though I don't think he was paying any attention, a thing did get set up, the Asylum Seeker Application Help Center, which was a place where people could go to get pro se help filing their asylum and status applications and move toward getting their workplace authorizations. And that is what we should have done for every single person. So I'm not giving him credit, but it was one thing that happened that is what we should be doing.
State Senator Myrie.
Yeah, I was gonna say just too little, too late, and I'm the son of two immigrants who were not documented when they had me. 2 immigrants who would take me to Kings County Hospital when I had asthma attacks. 2 immigrants who were not afraid to take me to the city hospital because they knew the city would have their back. This mayor betrayed us, told us that we were the problem for the city instead of what makes this city great. It was offensive personally, but also a complete failure of management and a complete failure of imagination. We proposed doing a New York City specific work permit, something called Work NYC. And look, I'm a lawyer. I've read the case law. Is it a slam dunk? No. But it was worth us trying. And I think that we had some grounds to do it. And when presented with this option, City Hall said, no other city in the country has done this. How are we going to do it? That's not our problem. This is New York City. We're going to step up and lead, and we're going to do something different. So that's what I would have done. That's what I still plan to do as the next mayor, and I think that there were some good things that happened too late in the process.
Thank you very much. Should we go to our lightning round?
I think so. I'm excited.
And then we're going to
about
open it up to a few audience questions that have been coming in. They've got some great questions for you. We're going to do this popcorn style. So whoever answers first answers the question. No, you just have to yell it into your microphone. We'll see how this goes. Amir, you want to take it away with the
let's
first
do
one?
it. Okay. Best taco in New York City.
So I'm going to say on Fifth Ave in Sunset Park.
Okay.
You okay? Your favorite halal cart in New York City? Go for it.
Well, this is going great.
All right.
Okay, I mean.
We asked the tough questions.
No answer. Okay.
Favorite. What do you prefer?
Where do you like to go?
The one on Park Place because it's closest to the office. I mean,
Okay, let's move on. I'm here.
Best dim sum in the city.
Joe Shanghai.
Oh, that'll be a tie.
What's your favorite parade?
West Indian Day Parade.
This is a very controversial.
Nobody else? Oh, sorry.
This is a controversial one. Best slice of pizza in New York City.
Come on, that's in the Bronx. Stop. It's in the Bronx. Vinny's on Grand Concourse.
Oh, okay.
DeFara's.
Gino's, Flatbush.
What's your bagel order? Anybody can answer that.
Bacon, egg, and cheese on cinnamon raisin.
Cinnamon raisin.
Whoa, Mike.
You might be off my ballot now.
I see agreement in the back. Y'all can judge me all you want. You can judge me all you want. You can judge me all you want right there.
Welcome, Assembly Member.
Not in everything big. What happened?
Come on.
Anybody else? No.
That must have been the most controversial take tonight, I think.
All right, this one everybody gets to answer. We're going to go down the line. Favorite public park?
Prospect Park.
Prospect Park.
Cloisters.
Van Cortlandt.
Astoria Park.
What's the last bus you rode?
The M60. Shout outs to Select Bus Service. And hello, I'm sorry for being late. Thank you for having me.
15 down 3rd Avenue.
104.
B63.
B44.
What's your favorite subway line?
All right, so it's the Q, but I grew up before the Q train existed, when it was just the BD that was going through.
BF.
Growing up in Washington Heights, the 8 train was my lifeline, but I've come to appreciate the number 2.
He trying to get Bronx votes by saying that. That's all he's trying to do right there. The D train, because you go from 125th to 59th.
Rest in peace to the 9 train, and shout outs to the N train. That is my favorite.
Wow. Okay, you ready for this? This is a question that's near and dear to my heart. Best public restroom in New York. Go right ahead.
Okay, I have to shout out the Times Square restroom because it's been there for me in moments of need.
You're going to see some things at the Penn Station restrooms.
Just talking about.
You're just talking about.
I just don't have a favorite.
That's a good answer.
There's between the peninsula and the lake in Prospect Park is this sweet little public restroom that they redid. It's beautiful. You should check it out.
I don't think it's going to be so beautiful after this.
So this had been closed for a long time, but the public restroom at Atlantic Ave, which has become a lifesaver, I think, for a lot of people.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We have been collecting questions from the audience, so we're going to turn to those now. Thank you all who submitted. Excellent work. Do you want to I'll start.
ahead.
All right. This is from Mohammed, the Executive Director of Caribbean Equality Project. LGBTQ people are experiencing unprecedented systemic violence, federal erasure, and discrimination in accessing jobs, identification, travel documents, and healthcare. If elected, how will you protect LGBTQ immigrant New Yorkers, asylum seekers, access to gender-affirming care? And we're going to start around 1 minute answers is what we're aiming for. Would you like to start?
Absolutely. First of all, really so much respect and so much love to the organization that we're speaking about, because too often this kind of work has been work that's been ignored by city government and has been put on the backs of community-based organizations such as the Caribbean Equality Project. You know, what we are seeing right now is a administration that is hell-bent on putting immigrant New Yorkers and queer New Yorkers firmly within their crosshairs. And especially for those that share both of those identities, it is a moment of an existential crisis of whether they will be erased from the very fabric of this city. And we have seen too many institutions across this city take this as an invitation to cower before they're even legally required to. And I'm thinking specifically of NYU Langone. There is a need for the city to use its leverage in every way possible to make it clear to these kinds of institutions that there are also city and state laws they have to abide by. And while NYU Langone may be looking at the federal government or some of its largest donors and worrying about the fiscal impact, they should also remember the city is one of their biggest donors by allowing them to continue to operate with property tax exemptions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Blake?
We cannot continue to fund any organization that would be discriminatory against our LGBT community, full stop. And going a step deeper, we have to be very intentional about what is also happening around our trans communities of color, that too often are not having someone that's speaking up for them. The work I did in the assembly and standing up with Boom Health, the intentionality of us addressing what's going on around the stigmas that happen, because too often in our communities, particularly in Caribbean communities, we are being too silent in what's going on and allowing this to continue. And so not only do we have to make sure there's greater funding supports and those protections, but we also have to make sure that there's greater legal support. And so when discriminatory actions are happening, it is our job as the responsibility of mayor to say, we will rescind licenses, funding, and penalize anyone that is attacking our communities. Because too often, what is happening in particular in our communities, immigrant communities in particular, stigma has spoken up as opposed to us speaking up for them. That will not be the case when I'm your mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Stringer?
I think it's time for us to come to terms with what exactly or what the hell the Human Rights Commission does in this town. And we need to fund it, and we need to give it a revised mission statement, especially in this era of tremendous discrimination against the community. As mayor, I will continue to do the work of holding the Human Rights Commission accountable. I did that as controller and as borough president. But isn't this the moment in time now where we want to invest heavy so that we can have the resources to root out what you talk about, Michael, the systemic discrimination? And it's happening not just on a national level, but it's happening right here in our city. And it can't be tolerated. And we have to have a response team to do this. If this was a hurricane, or if this was another crisis in the city, we'd be talking about another $25 million to Office of Emergency Management, right? And we probably should do that as well, given climate change. But we never have that discussion in the budget talks.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
When I was in the city council, I passed legislation to strengthen the city's human rights law to provide stronger protections based on gender identity and sexual orientation, including prohibiting discriminatory or bias-based policing based on gender identity. And trans immigrant New Yorkers like Linda Dominguez have put that law to work and won in court. Now, they did have to do it pro se, and Scott is right that more resources are needed at the Human Rights Commission. We won them when I was in the council from the de Blasio administration. Adams administration has let it go down. Second thing I mentioned before, which is to create an independent authority funded by city, state, and private dollars for gender-affirming care, abortions, contraception, and reproductive care that H&H now provides. That's less than $100 million, so that when the federal government tries to come and take the $1 billion that they give H&H, we will be able to save both.
State Senator Myrie.
Make no mistake, what this president and federal administration is doing is flat out unconstitutional attempts to control city policy. That goes against the foundations of our Constitution, particularly the 10th Amendment, that says very clearly that we are not forced to carry out their own policies. They're trying to use federal funding and other sources and resources to force us to do things we do not have to do. I want to hire 50 more lawyers for the law department. I want a frontline protection unit that is going to go on the offense to say that we will not abide by any of these illegal commands. We will not abide by any of the demands for us to carry out policies that are discriminatory, that go against the programming that we've been supporting of LGBTQ New Yorkers and gender-affirming care. I plan to stand very boldly and go on the offense with our law department.
Thank you. We got a fun one from the audience. We're going to go down the row. When was the last time you were in Staten Island? State Senator, would you like to start?
So about 2 months ago.
I petitioned on Staten Island for Democratic support.
Monday.
I was last there about 3 weeks ago to pick up the endorsement of the pastor of St. Philip's Baptist Church.
Thank you.
I was there on Friday with the Association for South Asian Labor.
Okay. How'd you guys get there? Did you take the ferry? Or did you drive?
Oh.
That's okay. Let's skip that.
It's a very interesting follow. Okay.
I'll
ask this. So we got a very interesting, this relates to the previous question, not the Staten Island one. What can the future mayor do to fully fund immigrant health care at H&H? There's a chronic understaffing crisis from doctors and nurses, due in part to underfunding. Senator?
So in addition to protecting the resources already allocated, part of this starts in our higher education institutions and the incentives that we provide for people that want to go into this work. We have really amazing residents, healthcare professionals that want to serve this community, that many of whom are from here. We have some of the most diverse hospitals and higher education systems as it relates to healthcare in the entire country. I represent one of them, SUNY Downstate, where we get to educate the most New York doctors out of any education system. I think we should be investing it. This is a simple, put your money where your mouth is. If you believe that these communities deserve high quality healthcare service, we gotta help the professionals who wanna go on that path.
Thank you. I mean, this is a place where we need more support from the state. The city's public hospitals see an enormous number of undocumented folks and provide that care in the H&H facilities, both in the hospitals and the medical care clinics. But yes, we're going to be losing more and more federal support, and the state needs to step up and provide a greater share of that. One other area where we should expand is mental health care. We have really experienced a mental health crisis since the pandemic. I mean, and this is everyone, but certainly immigrant New Yorkers who are feeling now the trauma that comes from Trump. We need to be able to make sure people know they can get that care.
Thank you.
Look, funding's critical. The history of H&H is very problematic, and I'm glad you asked this question, because when I was controller, there was a moment that everyone woke up one day and said, wait a minute, H&H is severely underfunded. And we worked with the de Blasio administration to make sure that we were able to stabilize it, but it almost got to a point where a lot of services were going to be lost, and H&H was going to be in the critical care unit. I think with some of these agencies, particularly ones that depend on so much outside funding and federal funding, we're really going to have to take a look at how we have create an early warning system with so many of these agencies. We see it with the Trump administration now seizing money, but even without the threat of Trump, we don't actually do the due diligence to look at agencies during the budget time and say which is the agency that's not going to be impacted today, but strategize about what's going to be in the 3-year plan on the out years. And when you don't think about the out years, you end up forgetting the budget ends up becoming something that becomes very problematic. That's what happened when I was controller.
Thank
You have two systems that are not actually functional right now between DOH and H&H. So first of all, we have to have a serious conversation on how do we make sure that our communities actually get to the hospitals and the facilities that are closer to them rather than being turned away, which is too often what's happening in our immigrant communities. Second, we have to make sure that we have increased protections when it comes to Medicaid and Medicare, because too often there's a fear, and what is happening right now is that you have facilities that are being discriminatory and not accepting, and therefore saying to immigrant communities, you're on your own, because I don't believe I'll make enough money by doing it this way. We also have to take it a step further to what was mentioned around mental health. Yes, we have to be clear about that, because too often we're not addressing the conversations. It is traumatic being an immigrant in the Trump era, when you are wondering every single day, will someone come for my family? Will my loved one get home? Will my person be safe? We just saw this last week. The Columbia student last week was being detained after coming out from a naturalization interview. So if you're in that kind of environment, of course you're going to be consistently terrified about the scenarios that you're in. And so we have to be intentional about increasing the funding that has to happen there. But then we have to take the steps. When I was at the Assembly, I co-led with Crystal Peoples-Stokes the effort around diversity in medicine. Because if you want to make sure you're also increasing the opportunity of us being cared for, you need more black and brown doctors that look like us. That is how you change what's going on when it comes to healthcare. Because if I'm consistently going to a facility, and no offense to the white guys in the room, I love you, Brian Scott, right there, but like, if
you wouldn't want me as your doctor, though, race notwithstanding.
I absolutely would not want you as my doctor, Brian. Right? You know, just saying. But like, too often we are going into spaces where everything's in English. There's no support that's happening there, and then effectively you're being told that you're crazy about what's happening here. And so if we're serious about addressing health in a comprehensive way, that means you have to honor our immigrants for who we are.
Thank you. Assembly member.
I really appreciated that. And I think, we have been running for many, many months, and it's been really heartening to just see how many different ways in which people on this stage are recognizing the humanity of immigrants across our city. I say that as someone who would be the first immigrant mayor in generations of this city, but also someone who is proud to be among these different candidates in stark contrast to our current mayor and our disgraced former governor, who refuse to come to these kinds of forums and refuse to dignify so many of the people that we're talking about with any time or any questions or any answers. And the fear that we are speaking of right now, I have family members who don't know if they can leave this country right now because they don't know if they can get back in. And we are talking about immigrants who are taking the numbers off of the apartment doors that they live behind so that ICE doesn't know which apartment is with which person. That's the level of fear we're looking at. And I think there are a few things here. When it comes to H&H, it should be the crown jewel of our public health system, right? It serves over 1 million unique visitors every single year, and yet we have a system that directs so much of the funding towards the richest hospitals while depriving the ones that serve the poor across the city. And I was proud to work alongside Controller Lander in our fight to hold Columbia and NYU accountable for the amount of money they do not pay on an annual basis in their property tax exemptions, more than $320 million, and proposing that that money be redirected to CUNY as part of our campaign as in legislation I introduced in Albany called the Repair Act. I believe that we should explore a similar thing when it comes to private hospitals and our H&H system. Furthermore, if we want to fight Trump, if we want to fight the Trump agenda that looks to erase so many of us from the face of this country and its history books, we also have to establish the fiscal independence required. And I'm proud that today my campaign put forward a proposal to raise $10 billion in new annual funding by raising taxes on the most profitable corporations across the state to the level of that of New Jersey, and by raising income taxes on the top 1% of New Yorkers by a flat 2% increase. That would allow us to pull this back.
You spoke so highly of your panelists. I wonder, you guys came a little late. Do either of you want to give us your number 2 ranking? You didn't get that opportunity before. We know Stringer is ranking Mr. Controller Lander as number 2, apparently.
You didn't hear this? Oh, it's all over Twitter.
Just a quick, do you want to name your number 2?
I have long been committed to making a cross endorsement well before Election Day, and it has been a pleasure to run alongside these incredible candidates, and I will be making that in the weeks and months to come, but before Election Day.
I thought you were going to say it now. I got excited.
And now,
Did you want to say no? Okay.
Murad.
Yes, I have another good question. I just want to say, for the health and hospitals, maybe we could take a look at that NYPD budget. It's really big, so I'm sure we can allocate some money there. But anyway, the next question is a yes or no question. Do you support Intro 615, the No More 24 Act, which would abolish the sleepless, inhumane 24-hour work days, which exist only in New York City for immigrant women of color home attendants? Senator?
Yes.
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 That was easy. Okay, we're on our way.
How are we doing on time? We got one more from the audience, perhaps. This is an education question. Do you support ending mayoral control? Yes or no, and why?
Happy to. I have been a critic of mayoral control, and I will continue to be one even as the mayor. I know that when I would come into office as the next mayor of this city, there would be a period of time where I would have that control. I would also, from the very first day, start to put together a commission to develop an alternative system of government.
Thank you.
I would not remove it, but it has to be improved substantially, because what we just saw happen in Brooklyn yesterday, earlier this week, with Brendan Mims, it is the latest example of why it's wrong, what's been happening. However, when we think about what's going on, this is the reason why I talk through why you have to have civics, financial literacy, and mental health for every kid in schools. It's about how do you rechange what's happening in our schools so you don't have ICE in our schools, and actually have an approach where we make sure that our parents are actually a part of the process in a better way.
I support mayoral control because when I'm mayor, I'm going to use my lived experience, my experience as an elected official, to make sure that every child has an equal education regardless of a parent's income. I'm going to cut through that bureaucracy like a sledgehammer and make sure that we get every kid where they have to be. I think that part of why people feel a sense of dread about a mayor having, power or a lot of influence is because of the mayors of the past. And I think a new mayor that's collaborative, that understands what this moment requires, needs the flexibility to move this bureaucracy. I have 2 kids in public school. They're in middle school, and they're at that age, 13 and 11, when their lives will be determined by our incredible teachers, by our principals and schools. But not every parent has the privilege I have to deal with some of my kids' issues. I got a credit card, I use it for my kids. Every parent wants to have that same ability, but some don't. And that's why the mayor, that's why the chancellor has to watch out for every kid. Kids who are afraid to go to school because they could be snatched by ICE. Kids who don't have the reading skills or the skills because they can't afford the tutors. I think we can upend this bureaucracy, but it's going to take a mayor with control, not languishing in a bureaucracy. And with that said, I have to go to my next meeting. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And let's make sure that we get the city back to where it can be. It's the greatest city in the world. Thank you very much.
Mr. Stringer. Controller Lander.
Mic drop. I support something that Councilmember Lou Fidler used to call municipal control. So I think the mayor should appoint the school's chancellor, but there should be advice and consent from the city council, and I will bring my nominee there because New Yorkers should see that person answer some questions and know they're a professional and not somebody's like cousin or crony. So that for starters. Then the vehicles that are supposed to provide for parent and teacher and student engagement really do need to be revived. I mean, none of the Panel for Educational Policy, or in many cases our CECs, or our school leadership teams are getting the kind of support and energy to help parents and educators in each of those places set real policy. And the SLT is really where this should start. I mean, every school needs a vehicle where principal, educators, and parents are working together on what might make sense in that school. And the debate has just gotten distracted. And so DOE is not providing support to help there be real engagement where it matters. So that starts at the SLT level. It should be included at the CEC level, but those elections have just become sort of nonsensical. So we either need to revive them or let them be appointed and built up from the SLT. And then the Panel for Educational Policy needs to be a place of genuine debate. And it has really not been that under this
mayor. So I'm going to revive all of that. And then I do just want to say one thing about the fact that this question kind of came last, and no disrespect, but we are barely talking about New York City's public schools in this mayoral campaign. And I mean, I think affordability is critical, and I think safety is critical, but New York City's public schools are $30 billion plus out of our $115 billion budget, the most significant and most important thing we do for the future of the city, and I really hope we'll spend a lot more time talking about it in the remaining months of this campaign.
Thank you. State Senator Myrie.
So I'm a D17 kid. I went to public school under the old Board of Education and under mayoral control. I support mayoral control, but I don't think that it is a perfect system. There are substantive changes we can make to our PEPs and our CECs, but I want the ability for voters to hold me accountable for one of the most important components of running this city. I want people to be able to run up to me on the street and say, Mr. Mayor, what are you doing to improve our schools? And that accountability, I think it comes with mayoral control. It is an imperfect system. There are places where we could have a lot more student and parent and family input. But I do think that that one line of accountability is really important, particularly when we have a federal administration that is prepared to eliminate the Department of Education, that is prepared to take Title I money away. I went to a Title I school. 1,300 of our schools in this city are Title I. I want the ability to be able to do something about it and do something quickly where people can hold me accountable, and that is part why I support mayoral control.
Thank you very much. Do we have time for one more, or should we do? This also is from the audience about Promise NYC. This was the childcare program that helped cover students, low-income students who were previously ineligible because of their parents' immigration status. As mayor, would you commit to expanding this program, even in the face of potential threats to our federal funding? Go ahead.
Yes, you know, this is, I think Brad often says this, that the winner of the mayoral race is the campaign for universal childcare, because it is something that so many of us agree with and are running on. And I think ultimately, when we think about what is pushing New Yorkers out of this city, we often talk about housing, but second after housing is childcare. And it's pushing New Yorkers out because the cost of childcare can be about $25,000 a year, more than it costs to send your kid to CUNY. And it's also pushing New Yorkers out because for childcare workers who do that work themselves, if they're working in an in-home setting, we're looking at about $10.50 an hour. If they're working at a center, they're looking at maybe about $16.50 an hour. This is not the kind of money you can afford to live on in this city. And right now, as our state budget continues to go on, we are continuing to fight to figure out how we can also ensure that we are doing the work necessary to not strip the few New Yorkers that have assistance in finding childcare from that in this moment. And it would have been great to have had a mayor who would have flagged this as a primary concern for New Yorkers from the very beginning of this budget process, as opposed to one who came on Tin Cup Day and didn't mention it at all.
Thank you.
It is simply too expensive to raise a family in New York right now. When you think about what is happening, you continue to see, to Zoran's point, which I agree, we all can agree, childcare and housing are the two fundamental expenses that are weighing things down. And the practical impact on immigrant communities is very real, because you're wondering, how long do I work where I work? Can I go, to the previous question on education, can I go and actually speak to what's happening for my child at the school? Can I actually get to the doctor in time? There is livelihood impact that's happening right now. We have to have universal child care. We can pay for it by actually cutting elements of the NYPD budget and other elements around this. We can be serious about this kind of approach. But also, we have to be intentional as well of the broader dynamics. 1 out of 8 New York City public school kids are homeless right now. When we're thinking about the dynamics of what that means, if you don't have child care and you're consistently transient, it impacts what's happening in our communities. It's the reason why I often say, and they will joke with me about this, we have to have local median income, not AMI. AMI does not work in New York City. It is fundamentally wrong. Why on earth are we assessing our economic thresholds by what's happening in Westchester County and other places? It is leading to the cost of living being higher right now. And so fundamentally, if we're serious about the true cost of living, which is incorporated, of course, with childcare and housing, you have to have a local median income approach. Lastly, I do also say we have to be much more aggressive on what is happening in our communities. I have said consistently, We have to end using credit scores for rental and home applications. It is racist, it is wrong, it is hurting our communities. It is a fundamental reason, equally when it's tied to childcare, why families don't have access to homes, because you're wondering, how can I actually the protections I have? Lastly, you have to have faster nonprofit reimbursement, because Eric Adams was so focused on trying to keep his ass out of jail that he actually wasn't helping our nonprofits who were wondering about their payments because they were focused on wrong attendance rates. If you're serious about childcare in a comprehensive manner, you can see the entire vision, what we're laying out in a very serious way.
Thank you. Controller Lander.
I was proud to be one of the 3 original champions of Promise NYC, along with Councilmembers Tiffany Kaban and Shahana Hanif. We proposed it. We won it in the City Council that first year. We've had to fight for it every year because Eric Adams has removed it from the budget and failed to baseline it. And we've won modest increases each year. And as a result, I've gotten to go meet some of the families that have Promise NYC, that now have childcare and could go to work. And it is so inspiring to talk to them. I mean, these are people who got here who just want the opportunity to work, and whether they then manage to get a work permit or not, but once they've got childcare, they could be out doing it. And unfortunately, some of the same people who have been fighting against it are people who are angry at parents who have their kids on the subway if they're, you know, offering something up for sale. But it's got to be one or the other. If you want these families to work, then we've got to provide the childcare to do it. It's just a couple of hundred families, though, who are getting it. So ultimately, we need to get to universal childcare. That's why I do support New Yorkers United for Childcare. But in the meantime, we absolutely should expand Promise NYC. I'd love to see some state funding for it, because we could at least match the money the city is providing. And I just think if these were the stories we were telling, you know, it's I think 4 different nonprofits around the boroughs who are providing it. And if people could see a little better what's possible when those families get childcare and what it means in their lives, what it means for their kids, what it means for their ability to be stable. If we want people to move out of shelters and into stable housing, then the way we've got to do it is to enable them to work. Step 1 is work authorization, but boy, right along with it is childcare. And that is the promise of Promise NYC.
Thank you. State Senator Myrie.
So, yes to expansion, but this, I think, speaks to a larger failure of this administration, failure of management, failure of certainty and predictability in the budget. If you are constantly cutting and then restoring, but not really restoring, and then taking a victory lap, the confusion that it gives to families, the confusion that providers feel, have real-life impacts. Families are trying to plan for September. They are trying to figure out, a provider is trying to figure out how much personnel they need and how many hours they're going to get. And if they have to go through this budget dance every single year, that uncertainty means that people are fired. That uncertainty means that parents are leaving the city, or that they're taking their kids elsewhere into less accessible, less affordable childcare, simply because this administration has refused to lead and do so in a way with predictability. We just saw a pilot program that cost the city about $25 million that expands pre-K and 3K from 2:30 to 5 p.m., allows for earlier pickup. Families love this. They enjoy this. They're able to continue to put food on the table. My mom, like most New Yorkers, did not get off at 2:30 p.m. And this was a program that was cut by the mayor, that was not restored in his proposed budget. And this, again, is this type of uncertainty, common sense things that help families that we need to be stronger on. So I have proposed universal after school. I want to expand pre-K and 3K from 2:30 to 6 p.m. everywhere, not just a pilot program, and also all the way up through 12th grade. I'm the product of an after-school program, would not be who I am today without it. I think we got to provide that opportunity for as many families as possible.
Thank you very much. We're going to wrap it up. We want to just give you guys each one last minute to tell us tonight what you think New York's immigrant community should know about your candidacy, if you didn't get to mention it already. Would you like to start over there?
So let me just say thank you to all of you for the work that you do. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for your advocacy. We need fighters in this moment for our communities. We need someone that is willing to not acquiesce, not to play nice, not to shake hands, but to stand up to this bully in the White House. What makes our city great is exactly what my parents came to this country for 50 years ago. My parents worked in factories in Brooklyn, made more as minimum wage worker in factories than they did back home with college degrees. People come here for opportunity. That's why they stay here. we gotta preserve that opportunity and we gotta step up for them in this moment. That's the kind of mayor that I wanna be. Not someone that is gonna be silent, not someone that is gonna avoid criticism, but someone who is gonna go on the offensive to protect our immigrant communities, because that is my story, that is the story of so many New Yorkers. That is what they're expecting us to do in this moment.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for being here. This is not a niche issue. 40% of New Yorkers are foreign born. 50% of New Yorkers live in mixed status households, including 1 million children who are the future of New York City. And that's what we're talking about when we're fighting to protect people from family separation or mass deportation. I'm proud to have been out there in those fights along with you for the Fund for Excluded Workers to expand immigrant rights. I was proud on Monday to win the endorsement of Make the Road Action for having stood with them time and time again. I will show up and fight for and with immigrant communities, and I will also be a mayor who makes sure that the city is better run, that you can count on the housing agencies to deliver housing, on NYCHA to get its repairs done. My commitments in this campaign are to end street homelessness for people with serious mental illness, to build and preserve the affordable housing that families need, to protect workers through that Mayor's Office of Workers' Rights, and to deliver a safer, more affordable, more inclusive, and especially a better run New York City for every single New Yorker, and that most certainly includes every single immigrant New Yorker. Thank you very much for being out here tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Blake?
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Michael Blake, previamente asambleísta para el Distrito 79 y ahora la candidato para la alcalde progresista porque necesitamos cambio ahora. I'm a Jamaican from the South Bronx. My full name is Michael Alexander Blake because my family named me after Michael Manley and Alexander Bustamante. We come here at this moment of time where we have a racist, sexist demagogue in the White House, and we have an absolute clown in City Hall. And it is our responsibility to demonstrate that we're going to have serious change. As the only candidate in this race who has been a part of a team who has defeated Donald Trump when I was the vice chair of the DNC, as the only person who could say that I have White House, State House, and local experience, we are in a moment right now where you have to ask yourself, of January 1st next year, who is best prepared to make sure you're ready to fight for this city? I've said very consistently, if we're serious about the true cost of living, we need a local median income. If we're serious about affordable housing, we got to expand our income thresholds because you should not be rich or poor enough to get access to a home. We have to have true safety in our community, but I'm sick and tired of cops trying to arrest our people, have mental health professionals actually addressing mental health. And when it comes to our immigrant communities, we are in this as one. If you are a believer of what's happening for us as a people, my name is Michael Blake. I'm a son of immigrants. I'm a child of God, and I'm here to fight for you. Join us in this movement, and I'm asking that you rank me first to be your mayor on June 24th. God bless you, everybody.
Thank you.
So my name, as some of you know, is Zahran Kwame Mamdani. And I want to speak for a moment as we end tonight about Kulsum and Yusuf. Those are my grandparents. In 1972, then President of Uganda, Idi Amin, expelled Indian Ugandans from the country. And my grandparents and my father were among those. And they became refugees in London. They had 90 days to pack up generations and live in a new country that they knew nothing of. And they lived in that refugee camp, and every Sunday, my grandparents would go to Gatwick Airport and they would watch the planes take off to go back to Uganda. And in the decades after that point, I was told stories about who my grandfather was before the expulsion. The vivacious poet, the small businessman, the heart of the community at the mosque. And I still knew him as someone I loved and looked up to, but I knew that he was forever a shadow of the man before 1972. And those were the stories I was raised with, the stories that I keep with me as I think about how so many immigrants come to this city, what they carry with them, what they have been forced to live through, and how for many, politics is not something that is optional, because whatever you care about politics, it sure as hell cares a lot about you. It can change your entire life. I came to this city when I was 7 years old. I got my citizenship just a few subway stops away from here. And I am excited to not just offer representation in a way that we haven't had in this city for generations, but to finally understand that immigrant New Yorkers, new New Yorkers, we are not all of those modifiers, we are New Yorkers. And we are at the core of this city's story. And it is time that we have a mayoral administration that understands that and that takes this not as a burden or a responsibility, but an opportunity to tell the story of how we've gotten to this point and how we will fight against an administration that seeks to wipe this city's history off the face of the map. This is the opportunity to do so, and I look forward to having your support on June 24th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidates, for coming tonight. We really appreciate all of your time. We know you've been to a lot of forums lately. Thank you, audience, for coming. Thank you for having us, CUNY,
you,
and
everybody.
have a great night.
Thank you, Gwen and Amir.